Hi, everyone. Good evening and welcome to our CrossBorders live session. Today, we will explore the challenges and opportunities in international event production. We are very happy to have three amazing industry experts: Russell Grevler, Strategic Director, Global Accounts at BI Worldwide; Igor Tobias, Managing Director at MCI Group; and Aretusa Tupinambá, Marketing Manager, Events and Digital at Fresenius Cab. So let's start with this topic, very, very hot topic that probably some of you don't know how to manage, but everybody is curious on how to do it now or in the future. We know that producing events outside Brazil involves aspects such as logistics, local culture, legislation, international audience expectations. So considering everything, Russell, I have one question for you now. What are the main logistical challenges when producing events in the United States?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me, Carol. I'm glad to be,
course.
and I'm glad to be able to contribute and
For
hopefully
sure.
add some value. So to answer your question around the logistical challenges, it's quite a broad subject. I think one of the main challenges, logistical challenges that we in the industry face when producing events or other types of events within the US is basically its scale, its size. We think of different venues, different types of audiences. The expectations are probably larger, maybe a little bit more complex than maybe what you deal with in other parts of the world. And those things affect everything. So from something as simple as transportation to signage, all the way to staffing and even just crowd control. You know, bottlenecks are always an issue. I'd say another area is probably around agencies and vendors and coordinating between all of them. I think in the US, a lot of the elements are very highly specialized. So sometimes you'll have audio visual or catering or security or staging, and sometimes you need multiple partners which basically have their own contracts or rules, even union rules, and obviously production times as well. So it takes, I think, maybe a bit more project management and more discipline than maybe what's typically required. And I'm sure we'll get into it later, but also the compliance and the insurance requirements are much stricter. There's permits, there's safety requirements and standards. I mean, I can go on, but you know, there's a lot of different facets needed to take into place to make sure that at least an event here in the US does run smoothly.
It's funny because, well, I mean, everyone here knows, but I've been working with Russell when I was in IBM, and like I know I'm not a speaker, but I think I can contribute with my experience.
Yeah.
And I think logistically speaking, the the thing that I'm most tougher working with Americans is the expectation, because here in Brazil we have a completely different expectation when we deliver an event.
Yeah.
And we are more like a relationship, we are more like um branding and make everything beautiful. On the other hand, when we work with American people, they are very strict to the point and very, very focused on content. And sometimes this difference, we struggling, like we Brazilian people working with American one, because it is completely different expectation, completely
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
It is, and not only logistical, but other areas too. It's very results based, very results driven. It's cool to have an engaging event, which you can produce, and the logistics around that. But what are the results at the end of the day? What are you looking to get out of it? It's not just the cool experience. It's really driven by like a real return on investment. So that's a big way of doing things here.
It's so fun. Another important thing that I would like to mention here is that now that I'm coming back to work with just Brazil, I realized, for example, how Brazilian people like to have giveaways. How important it is to have giveaways in events and like give things to people despite the type of event. At IBM was crazy because everybody hates giveaway. And I'm like, how is that possible?
Yeah, it's well, what are the other ways where we can bring people in and engage them? That's not just some small, I don't know, giveaway of it,
I've heard such 1,000 times, like, why we are gonna give this based on what business do we have an opportunity involved? And I'm
Exactly.
like, no, it is just more like a relationship.
Yeah.
No, it is a no every
is
time.
different.
So
Yeah.
it is different. Well, it's good. Igor, Ari, any consideration here? Igor, you have experience in Europe. What you think?
It's different. It's cultural, I think. You see, Americans are very ROI driven. We are not that much ROI. So we are entertainers in Latin America. We like to entertain people.
Exactly.
It's interesting and it's different. I think it's cultural, and we have to adapt. We have to be resilient and deliver what our client expects, no matter where we are, where the client is. But in the end, it's about fulfilling expectations.
That is the trick part, because and I think this is something important to our audience. We need to be adaptable, because in the end of the day, we need to deliver results. Of course, we have, and honestly, I think the biggest issue is the cultural thing, because if you work with European, maybe some countries looks like us, but others not so much. If you work with North America, probably it's completely different, but in the end of the day, we need to bring money if you are working in a corporation. So be adaptable is something that everybody that wants to work abroad must to be. So it's very, very important. Based on that, Aretusa, this is for you. You told me that you had an experience in Mexico. You did a sales convention there. What was the biggest logistical challenge you faced, and how did you solve that?
Yes. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, dividing my experience with you. And yes, I did a big logistical challenge in my sales convention in Mexico regarding the Mexican visa. My convention was postponed twice. First in 2021 because the pandemic.
Okay.
And on 2022 because the Mexican visa became mandatory.
Okay.
When we decided to do the convention there, it was because we didn't need the visa.
Okay.
So in 2022, we restarted the negotiation with the hotel.
Okay.
On July, and in the end of August, the visa became mandatory. And can you imagine the craziest scenario? Because everybody in Brazil that wants to go to Mexico needs to be to the consulate to get their visa.
How many people? How many people do you have in mind?
200
Oh
people.
my gosh.
200, yeah.
Okay.
So the first thing I did was call my travel agents to get the visa for everybody. And but they didn't know. Didn't do it. Then I called another travel agents, and no one was accepting these demands because the consulate was overwhelmed with so many visas requesting. Can you imagine all Brazil, trying to get Mexican visa?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So I sent an email to the Mexican consul asking what was happened, and he answered me. He answered me very fast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
Thank God.
yeah, thanks God. And he told me that he can help me, and he was organized groups to go to the consulates and to do the interview for the visa. But one week before we started the conversation, he didn't answer, he stopped to answer my emails. He simply disappeared. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. And then, facing this situation, we decided to postpone the convention for 2023.
No, but have you communicated until this time? Like, did you invite people at this point? They
No,
were already
they,
invited?
yes, they were already invited. They knew that our sales convention was in Mexico, but at that time we tried
Everything.
always everything to get the visa for everybody, because in this case I need everybody with the visa. If one
Okay.
person didn't have it, doesn't make sense we go without this person. Yeah.
Okay.
So we postponed it to 2023, and arriving there, we called our travel agents again, and the answer was the same. They didn't accept these demands, and because he told me the situation was better, but was not solved. The consulate was still with a high demand. So at this point, we decided to make an internal task force. Yeah, to obtain the
Jesus
visa.
Christ, this is crazy.
Yeah. We divided our participants in 10 groups, and then we schedule an online meeting with each group. And during this meeting, they accessed the consulate site, and we filled the forms, everybody together, because we can during this meeting we can solve all issues regarding the form.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end of the meeting, they submit the forms to schedule the interview in the consulate nearest of their home.
Okay.
And it works very well.
But it was hard working, right?
It was a hard working, and this process lasts about 3 months, because in the consulates attended only twice a week. So we don't have a lot of options to schedule the appointments.
Okay.
Okay. And then from all of them, we did only 5 visas denied, and they rescheduled the visa, but in the end, everybody got the visa. Yeah,
I mean,
and one point, the visas was valid only for 3 months. So we needed to deal with the period of to submit until the end of the convention.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Ari, and
Yeah.
this is interesting because if I understood what you said, it's more like the agency could not help. I don't know why. Maybe because of the issue with the consulate and I don't know, the high demand. But I mean, if I was in your your shoes,
Skin.
I was expecting that the agents could help us, and it is good to have 2 people from the agency here. They can give their perspective based on your story. Igor and Russell, do you think this is something that the agents could manage for her? Because I understand it is crazy, and it is not the agent's fault in the beginning, but if I was hiring an agency to help me, I expect that they could support me on this, or
You know,
even give me an idea, or I don't know.
we've come across this before, actually, for a client where yes, as an agency, you're also meant to help guide them through the process and keep them up to speed of any regulatory or any country-specific requirements, right? And especially when you're bringing international people to to another location or destination, the first thing that comes up has to be what are the visa issues, right? Because depending on the country or the visa or the passport that you hold, depends on the visa that you if you'll need a visa or not. So we had. I think it was a couple of years ago, but we had delivered a Golden Circle event for a client where they brought their top sellers from around the world to, I can't remember the exact country it was, but I think it was in the US. I think it was down in Miami, if I'm not mistaken. I stand to be corrected. But the problem faced is that because people were coming from all over the world, not everyone, unfortunately, was able to get a visa in time, or because of, similar to what Teresa was saying, the backlog of visas that have been caused by COVID was compounding. So there was just no way around it. It is what it is. Not everyone could make it there in time. So another solution that we're able to provide to them, and we said, well, you can't make it to America, but what we can do is for those people that could not make it, we can curate an individual travel package to a destination of their choice. Well, we actually gave them like 3 or 4 choices to use. So instead of going all the way to the US, we were able to kind of curate 4 different trips for them, plus 1, of course, and obviously within budget. But that was another way. Well, you can't make it to the US, but here's another way that you can still benefit from international travel at your convenience. So I get it. It does happen.
Yeah, but imagine, because at Itusa, it was like a sales meeting.
Yeah.
It is not an incentive, because if you are talking about an incentive trip, perfect, the idea, but like a sales meeting,
of course,
we need to have everybody together. But for example, Igor, if I have MCI, what you think could be a solution for Arituza in this case? Like, what kind of support? Because in the end of the day, she found a solution, but like when she needed support from the agents, in the end, she didn't have. So what is your perspective on it?
It's a complicated place to talk about another company. I was not part of the deal, but in my opinion, from my perspective, I'm 100% responsible for all the requirements needed in an international convention like this. So if I'm selling Mexico for a company, if I'm selling Mexico to a client, or Dominican Republic or whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm 100% responsible to make it happen. So my first thought when I was listening to Aretusa is I need to set up a meeting with her and present my service.
It's an opportunity.
Exactly. That's how I felt. I have an opportunity here, guys. Come on, I hope someone from MCI is
the door is
watching
open.
this.
The door is open.
I told you this podcast would be a great opportunity for everybody. Here it is. Yeah, no, but it's a tough situation, Ari. I'm happy that you
was
solved.
a tough situation for everybody who wants to travel to Mexico at that time, because the visa became mandatory 1 month to another.
This is
can
crazy.
You believe if the person who has the travel booked for next week, how can he solve it? It's not possible, because the demands of the visas in the consulates.
Of course. No, I can imagine how you almost got crazy.
Yes.
But it's good.
But we are here to solve all problems.
Igor is here. So please, Igor, you have an opportunity here. Oh my gosh, it's interesting. It's very good to hear that story, and I'm happy that you could solve that. So it's okay. And Igor, in your experience, how do suppliers and hiring staff differ between Brazilian, European, and North America markets?
Okay, I think it comes to maturity. I would say Europe, not entire Europe, but most countries of Europe and US and Canada, I would put this way, are more mature markets than Latin America, for instance. So contracts are based on SLAs. So if you hire something and you have the contract will be locked in SLAs. So you can trust that this will be delivered. I think that's the main difference. In Brazil, because we have a gap, a qualification gap, I think we have a hard time as meeting managers and meeting planners to be sure to follow up and be sure that things are going to be delivered as we need it. I think that's so we are talking about maturity and qualification gaps. But on the other hand, and I think it's a consequence. From my perspective, I think Latin countries, especially Brazil, we are more flexible and more creative. So it comes together. I think in a sense, it comes together because we lack qualification and we are not so structured and so mature. We have to be more flexible, which is sometimes the benefit for the client, because Brazilian clients are also much more spoiled than US and European clients. We have to say that to be clear. So in Brazil, it's very acceptable and expected that the clients will change things last minute, and we face that naturally. That in Europe and the US, this is not faced so naturally. So I think it's the pros and cons of each country. But I would say so. European countries, most of European countries, because when we say Europe, we have to define exactly what you mean. Are we talking about Germany, France, UK, Netherlands, or are we talking about, with all due respect, Poland,
Exactly.
Latvia? So what Europe are we talking about? Nothing against Latvia and Poland, amazing countries, but again, they are not so mature as we are not. So I think we can say that as Brazilians. So we have qualification gaps, but we are more creative and more flexible.
Igor, I 1000% agree with you, and I have 1,000 examples to share. I'm not share all of them, but it is interesting because as I said, I've worked with Russell, and Russell heard me a lot telling exactly these things, like we are much more flexible in everything. But I think it is because we are not mature and we are not so focused on deadlines and have a project management itself, because we are more entertaining people. I think it's very connected with that. So for example, when I worked with Russell, it is funny because every time I told him, I have no idea what you are talking about. Like, why we have a associate manager, project manager, because here in Brazil, it's more like I talked to the agents, they gave me the project. I have no idea who is going to work in the project. I just know that they will deliver what I need. It is so
one-stop shop.
funny.
In Brazil is one-stop shop. The
Exactly.
Brazilian clients, they want to be in contact with one person, and they expect the person to solve everything.
That's right.
I don't want to talk to anyone else. That's very Brazilian client, very Brazilian oriented. But I have a question to Russell.
Yeah.
So Russell, did Carol drive you nuts when she
All
was
the
your
time.
client?
All the
with
time.
last minutes requests, changes, and everything?
No, you know what? She was very, she's painting a funny story, but she was very disciplined. Carol knows what she wants and she knows what she needs, and she'll let you know when and how she wants it. So as an agency working with a client like Carol, you kind of want that, because you also want someone to be like pretty disciplined in what they are doing. But she was, whenever she didn't like something, she would let us know. And I think whilst, it was a little different for me, but it was good. It was necessary.
Igor, I understand what you are saying. You know that, right? But I had to learn.
Yeah.
Believe me, it was hard. It was hard because, oh my gosh, so many times I need to change that, but I know that I can't, because if I go to the agents in the United States, they will say to me, of course not. I'm not going to do this. Or they will say, okay, we can do that for X, Z $1,000. And I'm like, okay, I had to learn.
She's not talking about us, though. She's not talking about us.
No. No, it's not Russell. I can tell you, it's another agencies, but I think it's more like the way American works, and that's fine. But it's hard to understand, like, associate producer. I have no idea what is this. Project manager and producer, senior production, and I'm like, I don't know why I need everybody. I just need the project delivered.
Yeah.
And it is exactly what Igor said. So it's funny. Oh my gosh, this is funny.
And from our side here, we suffer a lot with these demands at the end of the project, because everybody involved knows the status of the project, but when the project is going on, they didn't ask for the changing. And then when you are almost there, please, could you change it? Please, could you add it? So this is hard for us too.
As well, for sure. No, and that's the point. It's super hard, but we are so use it to do like this, then it's like, okay, it's normal. Change. It is clear the difference, because even people like I've worked with people with peers, which was in United States, and the way they work is completely different. They are more like, okay, my deadline is that. I mean, I didn't have the answer. Okay, we are not gonna have this in the event because the deadline was that. And here is not like this. It's
No,
more like,
yeah.
okay, I have the deadline. We got in the deadline, and someone, and you, like an event manager, come to the agents and say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Can you give me an extension of the deadline?" It is always like this. It is crazy. And that's why Igor suffer with us every time, because that's who we are. Um,
Yeah.
Thinking about regulatory and laws and these challenges that we know that we have, even if it is in Brazil or in North America or whatever. Russell, what is the main regulatory challenges when producing events in the United States?
You know, the US is massive. I know Brazil is massive too, but the thing when we think about the US is that each state is basically a country on its own. And why I say that is because rules vary from state to state, and honestly, even sometimes from city to city. So what's required for an event maybe in, let's say New York, or could it be California or Florida, they could be all different. So this could be something like permits, or something as simple as like alcohol licenses, which was one example that we've come across. Fire and safety regulations, labor unions. Labor laws are huge. In some states, in some cities, you're actually only allowed to use those who are permitted to execute an event. What I mean by that is the rules are set up that only certain companies can do the stages, or the AV, the audiovisual, or even just to move equipment. So I'm sure Carol, doing an event and doing it in the US, it's if you don't know these rules, it can obviously be a headache, and that's why you need to work with someone who knows the local rules, and even by city. So from a regulatory standpoint, I can go into others, but for me the main one would be around just how the laws are different and the requirements are different, not only from state to state, but even from city to city, it's crazy.
It is funny because before I leave IBM, I was managing an event in Toronto with another agency, and the agency is from United States. And I discovered that I could not send someone like a producer from United States to Canada, because based on the rules, the only person that could work in the event should be Canadian because of the laws. And I was like, why is
What?
that? I mean, it is the law. Like if I work with an agency from Canada, or if I work with an agency from whatever else, the labor people, like the producer who is gonna be on site, needs to be from Canada. It's crazy, right? Because
Exactly.
so if you don't have someone local to help you, to guide you, especially in US, like it is true. In US, you will have like, it is one country, each state, or even each city. If you don't have someone local, you might be in a trouble. For sure, you might be in a trouble.
Yeah, that's exactly the point.
Yeah. Igor, how should tax issues and international contracts be handled when operating in Brazil, Europe, and in the United States?
The short answer, Carol, is local legal support. There is no other way. It's too complicated. It's the complexity is amazing, as Russell mentioned. In Brazil, we also have city taxes, state taxes, federal taxes, and it changes from city to city, to state to state. I'll just share a real case that happened last week. A company from Europe, from Brussels to be accurate, they are managing an event in Brazil on the second semester, and they are so used to do business in Europe that a company from Belgium, from Brussels, can manage an event in France, for instance, and they don't need a legal entity to sell tickets, for instance, or to sell sponsorship in France or in Germany, because they are in the community, the European community. And they came to Brazil thinking it was the same, that they could sell tickets in Brazil, they could sell sponsorships in Brazil without having a legal entity in Brazil. And of course, we are like 4 or 5 months before the event, and they came to us, say, "Oh, well, help me, what can I do? Because now I have to pay taxes, and I'm receiving the money here in Brussels. So what do I do?" So again, the right way to do it is local legal support. You need the local legal support. Don't rely on your legal support from your home country. You need local legal support when you are delivering the event. So that's a very short answer for people to remember.
It is really true. And I think that's like, for example, I was at IBM and I've been working with America only. Of course, I don't know everything about United States and Canada. So it was good to have local agencies that could help me not only with like the execution of the event, also give me this type of support. So you are completely correct, because it's true. We need local expertise to help us, because if we don't have, probably we are gonna get in trouble. It's true. But what I think it is interesting is that, I mean, we discussed about so many things, so many important things, but I can say that if we summarize everything, for me, we have one word: cultural aspects every time. So I think it's important we just focus some minutes on cultural and communication aspects. So I would like to know, what are the main cultural and communication challenges when producing events in Brazil, Europe, and United States? I think Igor and Russell can explain better to us these like tips for us and for the audience. Igor, please.
You can go first, Igor.
Okay. It's a complicated answer. It's a simple question with a complicated answer, because each country has its idiosyncrasies. So it's complicated to answer that in a short sentence. But I can give you examples. If a Brazilian say yes, it doesn't mean yes, and you know that. Yeah, it's true, because sometimes the person is saying yes just to satisfy you on a first answer, but the person is already building a solution. It doesn't mean that the person will not come up with a solution. They will probably come up with a solution, but they will say yes just to end the conversation, to give them time to think about a solution, and they will come back to you and say, "Hey, this is how we are gonna manage that's a matter." It doesn't matter what it is. In other countries, especially, I'll give an example. In Germany, they will say no. In the Netherlands, they will say no right away and say, "I'll think about it in another way. I understand what you need." No, but I understand what you need. let me figure out how you're going to deal with that. In India, for instance, is also they don't say no. You never hear from an Indian a person from India to say no. They will never say no because it's cultural. It's impolite to say no. So they will like do this like with their heads, and they will come up with something as well. In Mexico, they are known for that. Maybe Aretusa can share with that, share something. They have a timing issue. So they say 10 minutes, but it could mean 2 hours because they have, because again, it's cultural. So again, I think the local support is very important. I think that's one of our strengths, in my opinion. So as we are in 34 different countries, we are able to have people in each and every country to support us on how to deal with these idiosyncrasies and cultural differences. I don't know, Aretusa, if you had an issue with the timing in Mexico.
Yes, I have some, but we deal with it. But most of them, when I ask something and please could you do it for me? Okay, I will deliver it for tomorrow, but it lasts 2 or 3 days more.
That's exactly
and
what
the
Igor
answer
said,
was always very, very difficult.
I mean,
even in Brazil, if you consider Brazil, if you go to the north of Brazil, it's already different. The time perspective is different from São Paulo and from the south. So even in Brazil as a continent, and US, I think is the same, Russell, you can confirm that. It's different to do business in California and in Florida and in Texas and New York, for instance.
But I think no matter where you're based, whether you're in Brazil or whether you're in somewhere in Europe or in the US, the bottom, I mean, at least what we do at the end of the day, our job is to make sure that make the audience or the attendees feel as if the event was made for them, right? Because if they feel the event's made for them, then they'll engage more, and basically that's the goal. But to your point is having that local knowledge, because I think about Brazil. You guys were talking about it earlier. Maybe in Brazil, you might lean into something that's got more high energy and more informal, but engaging and fun, right? That caters to the local audience. But maybe here in the US, while they like things to be a bit more fun, things tend to be a bit more structured and more time sensitive. So it's interesting to see that. But ultimately, we're there to curate the experience for those that are and what they can deal with in their local countries and cities even. So it's important, but it all speaks to having those partners on the ground who know those intricacies. But it does make for a fun environment, especially when you have international attendees from around the world and trying to bring that all together.
Well, I'm here to disagree a little bit with Igor. Based on my experience, I can tell you, I think we are much more, we look like much more with European than Americans. I have the opposite view. I think American ones is like, okay, no, this is good. I love that. When they close the meeting, they just think about it and come back to you. Please change this and this and this and this and this. On the other hand, I think Brazilian, despite we are much more flexible, and sometimes we like to entertain each other and be friendly, when we have a goal decided and defined, we are very straight to the point. Like Russell suffered with me sometimes because when I don't like something, Russell, we need to change this and this and this because it's not according to what we expected, blah, blah, blah. which is very close to European, because like I've been working with Germany people, and they are very hard to work with. But on the other hand, I felt much more comfortable to work with them, because when they didn't like something, they just come to me and say, hey, this is not what I asked. I need this and this and this. Go back and bring me another project or whatever. And that's fine, because it is anything personal. It is more like about that matter. Over that matter, next one, let's go having a beer, or it's not personal. And I think we are a little bit like them. But with Americans, I felt they need to be friendly every time. They need to be like, oh, I agree with you. This is wonderful. Your idea is amazing. But then 5 minutes later, please change this, change. Also, so change everything. It's more like, I didn't like what you brought up. So
maybe
my
the difference
experience.
is because you are a client and I'm not.
Probably.
So it can be a bit different how people react to a client and to an agency.
Makes sense. Yeah, could be that. Guys, we are almost done. Of course, we could have like a ton of other questions. We could be here for like 2-3 hours more. We have some questions from the audience, so I really would like to highlight these questions before we end. And one is for Russell. I think it's a very good question. How are events in the United States incorporating innovative technologies in production and management?
It's a good question. I mean, technology is always ever changing. You think about now, how do you incorporate AI into the events, right? That's the topic of conversation. I think what is definite though is that events in the US, I mean, even globally, they really are leaning into the tech, not just for like, okay, this is cool, but also to really improve the entire kind of experience of the event, from planning even to the post event, but also the user experience. You know, gamification is a huge element now within any tech-based tool that's being used for attendees. And then, you know, on the AI side, that's moving at the speed of light. You know, we're seeing it being used for personalized agendas. Sometimes it's session recommendations or content recommendations. Even we're seeing in the larger events some real-time translations, right? So it's all about making the experience more personal, but that's just the scratching the top of the surface. I think what it all boils down to at the end of the day, when we introduce this tech and the advancement in tech and AI, is really about making the experience more inclusive and more personal. But I think especially even for international attendees. But tech is huge now. It's an integral part of any event, and there's no escaping it. I think once you make it as part of your event experience, it contributes to the success of the event as well. At least that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. Complement this question, I have another one. It's more like, and you and Igor, feel free to answer. In terms of investment, do you think in United States people are leaning to invest in events and also in technology activation at the event, or like Brazilian and Latin American people are more ahead of this and they are more interested? Because I'm just asking this because when I was on the other side, I felt that events are important, but with a small investment. So they want a big return with a small investment. But here in Brazil, I feel that we are more open to invest more, no matter what we are talking about. Like, for example, if we want to have like a artificial intelligence in an event to recognize the feelings, we know that this is very expensive, and Brazilian event managers are much more willing to like invest on this, but I don't feel the same way with American ones. What is your perspective?
I think it's a conundrum because, especially in the US, it's always cost efficiency, right? Cost cutting, cost effectiveness. Yet the budgets get smaller, but the expectations are larger, right? So do more with less, right? So as it's kind of a double-edged sword here, because as an agency, you have to work within the parameters of what a client wants and what they need. But on top of that, you have to use that budget. So you have to kind of be creative and think out the box for using the budget that you have. It would be great, like if we had the Brazilian mindset, you have to invest more. It kind of gives you more creative freedom and deliver more from an immersive experience. It's very valid. Budgets are always tight, especially when you think about marketing or you think about internal budgets. But it just puts it on the agency to be a bit more creative. We would love the opposite to be true.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
Yeah, and lastly, to add on to that, events aren't going anywhere. If anything, what COVID taught us during the pandemic was coming out of it, you still need that interpersonal, face-to-face connections, relationship building. You can only be behind a screen for so long, right? So the investment into the space is not going anywhere. It depends on how much companies are willing to pay for that interaction and what their return is, but also how creative agencies can be to deliver the most with, I guess, how much budget they can play with.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I would like to add something. So in the beginning of our conversation, we talked about ROI, that Americans are very ROI oriented, and I think it's really related to that. So and in Brazil, we are more focused on reputation and relationship. So when we deliver an event, or when a Brazilian client delivers an event, they want to. I'll be very Brazilian now. They want to look good in the picture. On a free translation here. So it's but it's true. So creative technology, for instance, in Brazil, we have a guy in our team. Probably you know him, André, and he's a creative technologist. And we sell creative technology to clients because clients, they want to innovate just for the pleasure of innovating. Just for the pleasure of being the first one to do something in an event. And they are happy to do it because everybody is going to notice their work and that they are innovating. They are the first one to deliver it. As American clients, and we have some American clients, they are very focused on, okay, how much does it cost? And how much money do I get back for each dollar that I invested? How many leads do I get in the end of the exhibition or whatever? So it's a different perspective. I think it's cultural. I think Brazilians are very focused on their reputation, sometimes for the company, sometimes for themselves. We have to be honest here as well. And building relationship. As Americans, again, lead generation, ROI, very business oriented.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, good answer. I have just one more here and we will close it out. And it is about, I think it's an important topic that everybody talks about, but I don't think everybody knows exactly what this means, which is sustainability in events. So, Russell, what sustainability best practices are common in event production in the United States?
I mean, it's a broad question because there's a lot of elements that are now being broadcast kind of into a sustainable environment. I think all events, though, are really moving towards sort of being more sustainable. So whether it's organizers that are committing to kind of like eco-friendly practices like digital ticketing or eliminating single-use plastics, using cardboard seating. I'm sure you've seen these expandable and retractable cardboard seating elements, cardboard displays. Even just like the catering elements, minimizing, not overdoing it. So there is a lot that they can contribute, but one other element we see as well is around like, what do you call it? Travel related emissions, right? So if you're having an international event, how do you limit the number of people, or, how do you reduce your carbon footprint, as they call it? So there's it varies by company, it varies by event, it varies by venue even, but everyone has like their own, goals in terms of how they want to produce sustainable events and how they want to contribute to that kind of thought process.
Yeah, I mean, based on my experience with United States, I think what I felt hard was like, and comparing to Brazil again, when we are talking about a trade show, they are very, very willing to do like pre-made booth, for example. And because normally we spend not so much paper and it's easier. But on the other hand, when we have this, there is a name in English, I just forgot about it. But anyways, this pre-made booth, okay, we normally spend less money and less paper or whatever. But on the other hand, you just put it away when the event is over. Yeah. I've never heard anything that could solve this issue. Or even, for example, if you are in an event, in a proprietary event, we are going to have signages. It is hard to hear like, okay, instead of having like a roll-up banner or there is another name that I forgot again, but a backdrop or a back wall, why we don't use like some technological like iPads or screens. Sometimes I've received this quotation, for example, but it was so expensive that we just, okay, I don't have and I can't invest on this. I'm gonna follow with the printed version. But in the end, we threw it away. So I felt this like different with Brazil because, as Igor said, now we like to look in the picture. And we are very pressured to be sustainable. So I think we are some steps ahead in terms of sustainability. I don't know what Igor in Lechuza thinks about it, but I think we are more concerned. In fact, we just act about it instead of
Brazil,
just,
you mean?
Yeah, I think so.
We are more concerned here in Brazil. I don't know. I have a point about it that I think us needs to always consider the sustainability when we are planning an event, even if it was all small things. Okay, because sometimes we can't do big things because the cost of it. So I always start an event thinking, what can I do to the event be sustainable? So sometimes it's difficult, but we need to consider because we are the agents who are transforming the marketing, right? And this is the point that it's always be in the lights in our minds.
That's why I told this, because I think even if it's because we are really worried about sustainability, or
Yeah,
because we are being pressured by the industry that we need to be sustainable, whatever.
both, whatever.
But I
Yeah,
think, considering the events that I've made here and there, I think we have this word like sustainable, being sustainable, more emphasized here in Brazil. We every time think about it, even if it's nice, small things or a big things. This is like a speech that we have. And I feel different with Americans. I think it's not so common, this kind of discussion, especially in small projects. If you have a small budget, it's more like, I mean, that's what we have. Let's go. And Igor, I think it's connected with ROI. They are not so
It is.
focused on being sustainable, this whole speech. It's more like, okay, whatever, if we're going to be sustainable or not. We need to get results.
It's a short-term vision, very
Yeah.
focused on our ROI for the Americans. Sorry, Russell, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Russell is not American, so that's why I'm
Okay.
so happy to talk about
Okay.
it.
Okay,
But
it's true. I agree with you. Where are you from, Russell?
South Africa. Yeah.
Originally, all right. So I think I have a very tough opinion on this matter. I think we are behind in Brazil. I kind of disagree with you, Carol. I think Europeans are way ahead of us and any
For
other. So most of European countries are much more ahead of us. I think in Brazil, again, because of the focus the cultural focus that we have on reputation and looking good in the picture and things like that, we are not willing to decrease the quality. And I'll give you an example: booth building, for instance. It's very tough to convince a client to buy a solution, how do I say, those kind of setup booth building that is ready. It's already a pre-set up. There is a pre-set up for the building, for the booth. They want to build a very unique booth for them to look good, and everybody say, hey, your booth is amazing, it's beautiful, it's creative. They're not willing to pay for a standardized solution, a sustainable standardized solution. So I think there's a cultural thing, because being sustainable in many ways sometimes also means to reuse things, to use circular materials. Sometimes means smart logistics. For instance, my event is not going to take place in a very nice touristic city in the Northeast. I mean, they're not taking place in São Paulo because the logistics is, I know it's simple, but it's not so charming. So I want to take them to Trancoso, for instance, but the logistics is not smart. The carbon footprint is much larger. So honestly, I don't think Brazilians are really skin in the game when it comes to sustainability. Some European countries, some of them now, because they have goals. Now some of them are asking us to be more sustainable also in events. So it starts in their plants, it starts in their industries, in their productive process, and then maybe it goes to the events. But I think we are behind, Carol. In my opinion, I mean, I'll give you an example. We have a ESG solution, a tool that we manage at MSCI. We invested a lot to develop our solution, and I would say 5% of our projects, not more than that, the clients are willing to pay for the solution, which implicates to reduce the impact first and then carbon offsetting. We cannot talk about carbon offsetting before talking first about reducing the impact. So first we reduce the impact, and then we talk about offsetting carbon. But clients are not willing to talk about that, really, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you. Makes sense what you said. And that's what I said. I think it's more like Brazilian likes to look good in the picture, and maybe we have the sustainable in the speech every time, but maybe we don't apply properly. But I still think compared to American, I think we are some step ahead. I understand your point and I agree with you, because yeah, it's true about the booth, it's true about the carbon. It is because we like to be the fancy, the more innovative. Sometimes we don't know why we are doing this. It's more like, okay, it is the best, it is everybody's talking about, so let's do this because this is fun. I understand that and I agree, but I still think comparing to American people, I think we are some step ahead. Guys, I cannot thank you more for this podcast. I think it was incredible. We brought up some important things. I think our audience will love the content. And before we close this amazing discussion, I would like to also thank our sponsors and partners for making this event possible. So, Grupo R1, Integra, Marriott, MCI, Costa Brava, Travel and Events, Shift Mobilidade, Torin Zanetti, Surpresa Tem Hora, Malai Manso Resort, Ata Gastronomia, Ori Casting e Prime Geradores. Guys, thank you all. Thank you all for joining our Benchcast. We hope this live session was insightful for those looking to expand the international presence. And feel free to reach out to us. We are in LinkedIn, we are in Instagram. Feel free to add us. We are here to answer your question, help you, whatever you need. Guys, you all, thank you so much. I hope to have more opportunity with this team again. So that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
for the invitation. See you.